Shrine Keeper, tell me about the last remaining lord.
Rest at the bonfire, and let me tell you the story of the Witch of Izalith. The Witch of Izalith stands as a towering, imposing figure, her stature alone surpassing both her children and the very catalyst they wield. Her lips are tinged blue, her skin pale and ashen, and her hands bear the deep, permanent scars of fire, the marks left behind from when she tore her own soul from the first flame itself. She wears a far more regal and refined version of the gold-hemmed black robes worn by her daughters, an attire that speaks to both her mastery over fire and her place as their matriarch. Long before kingdoms rose or the Age of Fire truly began, Izalith was one of the first beings to walk the world after the first flame appeared. A flame that brought disparity into existence, heat and cold, life and death, light and dark. From that moment, 4 great powers emerged from the flame, and with them, 4 lords who would shape the fate of the world. Gwyn, Lord of Sunlight; Grave Lord Nido, the first of the dead; the furtive pygmy; and Izalith herself, who claimed one of the mighty Lord souls. Empowered by her soul, Izalith built an underground civilization, a realm hidden beneath the earth, where molten rivers flowed and great stone roots stretched into the dark. In time, she would bear at least 7 children, all of them adorned in gold-hemmed robes, protecting themselves from the deadly fires, poisonous vapors, and countless dangers of their home. Together, they studied the secrets of the first flame, becoming masters of fire sorcery, fire shamans, whose power drew strength not from intelligence alone, but from faith itself. Fire, in Izalith's domain, was not merely a weapon. It was a sacred force. When the war against the everlasting dragons began, Izalith and her daughters joined Gwyn and Nido in their campaign to seize the surface world. While Gwyn's legions wielded lightning and Nido spread death and plague, Izalith brought the raw fury of fire itself. She channeled her lord's soul directly, summoning cataclysmic firestorms that consumed the very earth, burning away the arch trees and even the stone hides of the dragons. Her daughters fought beside her, using their sorcery stabs as mediums to shape and direct the destructive flames. The war was brutal, but the combined might of the lords shattered the dragon's reign. The archdragons were nearly driven to extinction, and the Age of Fire was secured. With victory claimed, Izalith and her children did not remain to rule the surface. Instead, they withdrew, leaving Gwyn to his newly built kingdom and the humans under his dominion. Deep underground, they carved their own empire, the city of Izalith, built around the corpse of a great arch tree, suspended within a vast cavern of molten rock above a raging sea of lava. It was here that the Witch of Izalith reigned, and where her true tragedy would begin. Yet the glory of Izalith's empire would not last. In her relentless pursuit of mastery over fire, the witch and her daughters continued to probe the boundaries of flame and soul. At the height of her ambition, or perhaps her hubris, Izalith sought to replicate the very force that had given life to the world, the first flame. Using her own lord's soul as the foundation, she attempted to forge a second primordial flame, one that could rival the original. But the experiment was a catastrophe. Instead of birthing a pure and stable flame, Izalith unleashed a violent, unstable power. The flame of chaos. It roared out of her control, consuming everything it touched. She herself was swallowed by its fury, her body and soul twisted into a monstrous, writhing seedbed of chaos. 2 of her daughters were taken with her, becoming part of the same abomination. From this cursed seedbed came something new, not life as it had been, but a warped, brutal parody of it. The demons. The first to emerge was her youngest son, the smallest of her children. His sisters, desperate to protect him from the searing agony of the lava, gifted him a magic ring to shield him. Yet the unsteady chaos within him could not be contained. His body transformed into a monstrous form, and the ring was lost, leaving him forever burned by the very fire he could not master. In time, the survivors of Izalith's bloodline managed to stabilize the flame of chaos enough to create more controlled creatures. These were the first true demons, beings with stable forms who could wield the chaos within them without being destroyed. They were not mindless beasts. Some became priests and scholars of the flame, learning directly from Izalith's daughters and integrating into the underground society. The city itself grew to house them, its borders expanding with new halls and shrines dedicated to their demonic citizens. From the flame of chaos came a new art, pyromancy. Born of primal fire and tempered by the knowledge that such power could never be fully mastered, pyromancy became a cultural cornerstone of Izalith. It was shamanic in nature, deeply rooted in reverence for fire's untamed spirit. Its earliest practitioners bent lava to their will, shaping it into devastating weapons and sacred rituals. Even blacksmiths began to work with fragments of the chaos flame, forging weapons infused with its unpredictable might. But while Izalith's new creation thrived underground, the surface world was changing. The first flame, the true first flame, began to fade. Gwyn, desperate to prolong his age of fire, resolved to sacrifice himself to keep it alive. Knowing his own soul would not be enough, he set into motion the myth of the chosen undead, a figure who would rise to inherit his mantle. Izalith, despite the disaster that had befallen her, played her part in this plan. In the heart of her city, she built one of the two bells of awakening, the first great trial for any undead who would seek to take Gwyn's place as Lord of Cinder. It was a fragile pact, and one that would soon unravel entirely. But the flame of chaos was not done with Izalith. In her desperation to master the unstable power she had unleashed, the witch attempted once more to bring it fully under her control. Instead, the chaos surged beyond restraint, consuming her and her daughters in an inferno that swept through the city. What had once been the proud capital of flame was reduced to charred ruin. The Witch of Izalith, along with the two daughters who had been directly involved, was twisted beyond recognition. Her body and soul hardened into a vast, root-entangled monstrosity that anchored itself deep within the throne room at the heart of the city. This abomination would become known as the Bed of Chaos, the living source of all demons. Of her surviving children, few escaped the corruption. Quelaag and her sister fled, but not unscathed, their lower bodies fused into grotesque spider-like forms. Still, they survived on the fringes of the ruins, carving out their own domain. Only Quelana escaped unmarked, retaining her human form, though she exiled herself to the wilds, haunted by the memory of her mother's folly. The collapse of Izalith's society and the rise of a new hostile race drove Gwyn to act. The Lord of Sunlight marshaled his armies and waged war upon the Chaos demons, forging weapons and battle arts strong enough to contend with their terrible strength. His silver knights marched into the blazing depths of Izalith, but the cost was great. Their once gleaming armor was charred black in the fires of battle, and even they could not destroy the Bed of Chaos. In the end, the demons were driven underground, their power contained but not ended. Some of the weaker among them were enslaved to serve the gods. Time passed. Gwyn linked the first flame. His firstborn was cast down and exiled, and the great city of Anor Londo began to empty as the gods faded away. In the shadows of this waning age, the Bed of Chaos continued to spawn new demons. With no strong hand to restrain them, some, the Capra and Taurus demons, began to roam to the surface, creeping into the ruins of the undead burg. When at last, a chosen undead rang the bells of awakening and braved the trials of Sen's fortress, they were granted the Lord Vessel by the gods. Guided by Kingseeker Frempt, they sought the great souls needed to succeed Gwyn. Their journey would take them into the rot and pestilence of Blighttown, to the very edge of Izalith's ancient realm. There, the path was barred by Chaos Witch Quelaag, still guarding the ruins in her monstrous form. Defeating her opened the way into the demon ruins, where the undead pressed through legions of demons to reach the city's smoldering core. Deep within, they entered the shattered throne room and confronted the bed of chaos itself. Izalith and her two daughters still fused together in their hideous, rooted form. Beneath the tangled mass, the witch's true body had withered into a small chaos bug, the pitiful remnant of the once great lord. The chosen undead struck down the bed of chaos, claiming Izalith's lord's soul. Her suffering was ended at last, but the death of the seedbed spelled doom for her creations. Without their source, the demons of chaos began to die out, their age like that of the gods, slowly crumbling into ash. Thus, the story of Izalith stands as one of both triumph and tragedy. Once a goddess who commanded the very heart of flame, she was instrumental in shaping the Age of Fire, her sorcery scorching the dragons from the skies and carving a place for her people in the new world. Yet, despite her power and wisdom, her fate would not be one of peace. The fires she so cherished would one day demand more than even a lord's soul could give. And in her attempt to defy the natural order, the Witch of Izalith would seal not only her own doom, but the downfall of her entire house. In the molten halls of her city, the embers of her glory still burn, casting long shadows that whisper of what was and what should never have been.